decision making. For example, there's no point at all England raising interest rates and then the government coming along and saying it's going to borrow more money in order to provide subsidies to households. The whole point of what the Bank of England is doing is to transmit a tightening effect through the economy, and I'm afraid we don't. It's
true. That's true. Good morning. So, let me get these links out. Wait for a few people to join, and then we can dive straight into it. Slowly but surely. Let me have a little look.
And it's now appearing that the pressure in UK inflation is coming mainly from wages now. And wages being put up by employers, not by employees. It's employers going around.
Can the government really not go ahead though with the public sector pay deals if they are recommended by the independent pay bodies? Because that's the sort of latest in terms of trying to keep a lid on wage rises.
Okay, yeah, so we've taken a short here on EuroCAD and taken a long on Bitcoin. I will go over the updates in just a second with you all. Let me just take a little look at gold because there's maybe a position playing out. Okay, we move a bit up. See how it reacts off this top here. So we came down to 15-minute, just above. Yeah, it's setting up some structure, but there'll be a trade soon. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm doing. Looking at gold here. So, the update that we sent in. Have a little look. We were looking. So on the higher time frame. Obviously, it's pushed a little bit higher this morning, but higher time frame. It's still looking very weak. Beneath that 100 moving average came and tested, so we could be looking at gold leading today. But yeah, let me go through the high time frame chart. So let's get everything off. So we broke out through this area here, right? We're actually beneath that structure. Came down, tested for demand at this level here. Not crazy amount. That was the move to 1937. Okay, that we did get in, but we pulled out a bit early last week. But it came into this 15-minute area, tap for liquidity, and you see that huge supply dump. So it could be the case that we come back up and test that area, tap for liquidity again, and then make a move down. It is setting some positive structure on the very short-term basis. So, I mean, we'll see how it reacts there, but there is more supply just here as well. But that higher time frame structure is looking pretty weak. Could be the case that we make that first move to that point of structure just here, this low. There's your demand, your much stronger demand. It's a pretty big area, but you got that 200 creeping in there as well. So yeah, we could see a pretty red week this week.
As well, just to bring you up to date with the latest that we're hearing as regards the events in Russia.
But yeah, in terms of trades right now, you just got to be a little bit patient. Yeah, I won't be taking anything. We'll see how it kind of reacts at the top here. If it's still looking strong, I mean, you could be looking at another move there. But high time frame structure is looking pretty bearish, so that's the direction that we're going to be looking at taking trades. But yeah, that's your update. Ooh. Came to the 0.5 on oil. Okay.
So,
Yeah, lower high, just breached through here. We came down to this 15-minute liquidity zone. Maybe. Maybe we come back down to this area, make a double bottom. It was a nice reaction to end the week. It was a pretty big sell-off last week as well, all the way down. Yeah. So essentially what we're waiting for is some structure. If it can hold a higher low, that'll be ideal. Maybe we can get on something for a change of character and move back up. If it continues to look weak, then we'll look at this area holding again towards this bottom, and see whether we can get change of character on the lower time frame at that point and then make a move up. Or I mean, if the sellers continue to come down, maybe we go a little bit deeper into that zone. It's a pretty strong area, but yeah. Last week, the way that we were looking at things was move back towards the top. Here, this liquidity zone, the supply area, which is also that top of the range that, again, we're moving within. So, it could be the case that we set a bottom here, lower time frame, get in for a long to actually break through these points here and tap that liquidity area at the very top. So, yeah, letting things warm up.
Particular problem facing the NHS. There are countries that, and that's something that's having what's been described in this research by the King's Fund.
We'll see. We're in short here on EuroCAD. Sent out the trade this morning, and in on a long here on Bitcoin. So let's see.
Gave his own review of how they were handling the inflation problem. Yeah, and he gave the BOE his full back in.
I should take my hay fever tablets because I'm dying already.
The trust when she was making noises around the BOE invested in like that. So I think it's like a football manager. You kind of have to back them right at the moment. Do you think I need to go with them? You can't have kind of half and half support. So
but yeah, that's your update. We're just waiting for a bit of structure to come in on gold, and then we can go again. Yeah, things are just warming up for the week. It's not really been an insane morning, but we're getting a little bit of movement this weekend in terms of crypto. Has been absolutely insane. Lots of trades, lots of opportunities, lots and lots of profits, as you can see. Yeah. Yeah, just it was a fantastic weekend. Lots of movement. The altcoin market is setting up for a decent move. A very decent move. We've got
also, I mean, the name of the company is AB Foods, and yet we tend to only talk about Primark when they get results. But Twinings tea,
we got some of these in the pipeline, so we'll see how things kind of react. But yeah, massive moves. Waves was up nearly 100%. AAV also went up huge amounts. Carver also went up huge amounts. As you can see, big move, massive move. So there are very good opportunities in the market. You gotta sift through them. This morning, in terms of that appearance of Russia's defense minister, there had been some speculation. But yeah, as mentioned, we got some in the pipeline, so we're ready. We're keeping an eye on them. This morning we'll also be getting the latest on the IFO Institute and their survey in terms of the German economy. We'll be speaking to the IFO Institute in the next hour as well. In terms of data this week, we got a bit of data coming out. EU CPI, core PCE prices from the US. Pretty sure CPI from Japan as well, so should see a little bit of movement. Should be a nice week.
This Independence Day, Bloomberg and Morgan Stanley are proud to present the Boston Pops Fireworks Spectacular, starring conductor Keith Lockhart, with special appearances by In Vogue, Broadway's Mandy Gonzalez.
But yeah, those that are just joining us, feel free to message us in the chat section, NTA, that you want us to go over. More than happy to do so. But yeah, we're in short on EuroCAD, as you can see here. Very nice entry, nice profit. We did take a loss here on pound Australian dollar. Tried to see whether we can get a break through this structure here. Failed to do so, got a rebound, so we got out slightly early. So we'll see whether we can go in again. Again, the update that we sent out yesterday was looking for a potential short here or a little bit higher. Okay, we just need to start seeing a little bit more supply. Obviously we got it there, but demand came back in, so yeah, we'll wait for another rejection, but it's a pretty strong area at the moment. It might be the case that we actually break through it, so we'll see. What was the other one? US dollar, Swiss franc. It's potential. We've got to wait for a little bit more structure here.
Good morning from London. I'm Caroline Hepker. And I'm Lizzie Bowman. You're listening to Daybreak Europe.
What was the
live
other
on
one?
London
US dollar, Canadian dollar.
Let's start this hour by looking at the markets. European stocks are currently down 0.3%. Banking stocks are
Yeah, this isn't looking too bad. Came up, tapped for liquidity, so we might be able to get in on a short.
Look, sanctions have largely cut Russia off from
Yeah,
global financial markets.
it's looking pretty good.
Gas prices, gas futures, the Dutch front month soaring this Monday morning, up as much as 13%. That seems to be the largest evidence, really, of turmoil in markets. You can't really even call it turmoil. Also, Brent crude futures this morning up 0.2%. You did see that 4% slide last week. Brent crude futures at $73.97. I mean, calm elsewhere. Bloomberg dollar spot index is down 0.1%. Euro dollar trades totally flat, 1.0897. As for stock futures for the US, they're just about in the red, down 0.1% for the S&P 500.
Thank you for the follow, whoever that was.
10-year yields down.
That was just there. But yeah, thank you for the likes on the stream anyway.
Business confidence index coming in just below expectations at 88.5. The estimate was for 90.7. That line just crossing the Bloomberg terminal.
Let's go to our top stories this morning. After a weekend that threatened to destabilize Russia, the location of the mercenary leader who ordered a mutiny against Vladimir Putin is unclear. The Russian president diffused the biggest threat to his grip on power in 2 decades with an 11th-hour deal with the Wagner Group chief Yevgeny Prigozhin. Although Prigozhin hasn't commented since, Moscow's mayor lifted the city's counter-terror regime, which had been put in place over the weekend. Meanwhile, Britain's former National Security Advisor, Peter Ricketts, says that the mercenary commander presents a complex challenge for the Kremlin.
Again, as mentioned, so those that are with us on TradingView, we won't be live on TradingView for the New York opening session. So if you do want to tune in on that one, just bear in mind it won't be on TradingView. So only the London sessions will be on TradingView.
Both Putin and Russia will likely come out of the crisis weaker, according to one confidential European intelligence assessment. And that view has been backed by the US Secretary of State Antony Blinken, who says the events are deeply embarrassing for Moscow.
We've also seen rise to the surface profound questions about the very premises for this Russian aggression against Ukraine that Prigozhin surfaced very publicly, as well as a direct challenge to Putin's authority. So I think we've seen more cracks emerge in the Russian facade.
Blinken's assessments also supported by Bloomberg's own reporting. Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu visited the front in Ukraine for his first public appearance since the uprising began. According to people familiar with the situation, Tensions within the Russian elite over the Ukraine invasion have been on the rise for months.
Now, the Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, says that he fully supports the Bank of England and the action that it has taken to fight inflation. Sunak's comments come after some of his own ministers criticised Governor Andrew Bailey, saying that he was slow to recognise that inflation wasn't transitory. Here's what he told the BBC's Laura Kuenssberg.
I think the Bank of England's track record, including the Governor's track record, over a long period of time has been that inflation has been managed appropriately, and people should have the confidence that inflation will fall back to target as it is.
Not all of your colleagues think he's done a good job.
I can tell you as Prime Minister, the Bank of England is doing the right thing. The Bank of England has my total support.
The UK is falling apart. That's what it's doing.
Pay rise recommendations from independent pay review bodies. The potential measure suggests a new twin-pronged assault on the UK's stubborn inflation problem, with the government prepared to take action alongside the Bank of England.
Should have done that in the first place.
Again, as the government's modest stimulus disheartened investors. The Hang Seng fell 6% last week. The worst since March.
Yeah, in terms of data, we're not getting any data this morning, really. Yeah, it's pretty quiet.
Data out this weekend shows China's consumer-driven recovery continues to lose momentum.
Get some data tomorrow.
Everything from holiday travel to cars and homes.
Central bank chiefs from all over the world gather in Portugal this week.
Thank you for the follow.
How far interest rates need to rise to tame inflation, and if economies can avoid recession.
See where the Bitcoin can push off. Came down, tapped for liquidity here. Quite nice reaction. So we'll see whether we can continue. Got the stop loss just beneath. So could get this nice change of character here. Bam, straight up.
So it's going to be very, very
maybe not.
All these,
we'll see.
Central bankers on one podium.
Very brief breach, yeah.
Who will be at the gathering in Sintra, Portugal. She'll be in the audience when Christine Lagarde, Andrew Bailey, Jay Powell and Kazuo Ueda speak on a panel debate tomorrow.
And finally, HSBC is leaving Canary Wharf after 2 decades. In Potts has more.
It's an iconic part of London's skyline, but in an era of hybrid working and rising costs, HSBC is reportedly planning to leave its Canary Wharf tower when the lease comes up in 2027. The Times says the bank's employees will be told later today that they're downsizing to an office in St Paul's, formerly the HQ of BT Group. The move comes as HSBC looks to cut office space around the world by 40%. In London, I'm Ewan Potts, Bloomberg Daybreak.
Smart move, smart move.
Yes, we do know and have confirmed Tom Metcalf has a piece on the HSBC move from Canary Wharf, actually much closer to where we're sitting, so near to St Paul's Cathedral, not a stone's throw from us.
So he'll take over the building. It's an icon in the skyline.
It is. Well, I think that's the issue, isn't it, for Canary Wharf? I suppose it raises that question. But look, let's turn our attention.
Right, I'm going to move my stop loss and break even on your card.
Seems to be fairly limited to the weekend's events in Moscow and elsewhere, but we're going to have more coverage for you of this story and some really interesting guests joining us this hour. Justin Parker is the CEO of Sibylline, which is a security and intelligence company, advises a lot of different people, and he's really quite fascinating. Emily Ferris, also from RUSI, research fellow in international security studies at RUSI, which is obviously extremely well known in terms of the security landscape, and she specialises in Russian domestic politics. So I wonder whether she thinks that Putin has been weakened.
Yeah, it was really interesting speaking to the former Foreign Secretary and Defence Secretary Philip Hammond with you, Caroline, on Bloomberg Radio earlier. He was saying, be careful what you wish for, is what intelligence chiefs used to tell him when he had threats like this on the horizon, and I'm sure it applies in this situation with Wagner too. Interesting to get his take on the UK economy as well, given that he's also a former Chancellor. Interesting that he said it's not the time to be talking about tax cuts, something that many Conservative MPs are clamouring for right now, but that would surely make the inflation situation worse.
Yeah, absolutely. The possibility is surely more likely of stagflation in the UK rather than being able to cut taxes. But there we have it. I know that was a great interview with Philip Hammond, Lord Hammond. Right, let's bring you then to one of our key interviews this morning, the dramatic weekend of events An insurrection aborted, a deal then brokered to apparently absolve its leader of all charges.
You alright, Matt Nick? How you doing? Good morning. I'm good. How are you?
Earlier, the UK's former ambassador to Russia, this is Tony Brenton, said that it is a mistake to assume that this is the beginning of the end of Putin.
I think that those
Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back.
last rights over Putin's regime are a bit ahead of themselves. Yes, the whole thing is very damaging, but mostly externally. I mean, the Ukrainians, of course, are cock a hoop because, of course, it's their confidence that they're going to win their war. The West never likes Putin anyway, and will be reinforced in their support for Ukraine and all of that. If you look at it from inside Russia, this is a country that's at war. This is a country
Good.
that gathers around its principal leader, i.e. Putin, in any case, and the evidence is strong that Russian public opinion is behind the war and behind Putin. The elite around Putin, and I know several of them, have been working for him forever. Putin never sacks anyone. And they know that if Putin goes, they go. So for the moment, the system, okay, it's had a buffeting, but it's going through it. They're actually doing slightly better.
Nice volume.
That they will pull together and continue to fight their war and hold together until either the war ends.
Yeah, that is very true. Oil is stable. I'm looking at potential long, hopefully. Just waiting for a little bit more structure here. But, I mean, lower time frame looks like maybe we get a little bit more red.
Prigozhin is theatre, very noisy and worrying theatre. The real game is on the battlefields of Ukraine.
Some here. Then at the bottom where it found that bottom last week.
Does this look like a Vladimir Putin?
Just a little bit more sell side pressure here, so we'll see how it kind of reacts. It might be the case that today maybe it just sets some structure around here and maybe push up.
And the deal was, I mean, Putin having very firmly said this is treachery, this is a stab in the back and all that.
Be a pretty big move if we do make that break to the downside, but yeah, we'll see. This is a nice bit of structure here, you know, coming up and testing, so hopefully we can hold these areas, start to make a rebound, break through these points here. So for now, not much, but yeah, we'll stay patient here. And it's kind of the same thing here with gold, really waiting for price to enter some liquidity areas. Could be the case that we come back up, test this point, move back down, or even overextend and go to the higher liquidity point for supply and then make a move. It looks pretty weak on the higher time frame, so if we do get like nice reaction just like this here from this point again, I'll take that short, potentially break through that trend line. Yeah, bounce about 72. Yeah, that's that. You got a little bit of structure here. Obviously, you got a little bit of liquidity from this point. You got your point structure there as well. I'm just thinking, it's been testing obviously the bottom of the range quite a few times. Okay, 4 times where we've only really got 2 strong tests from the top range, so if we might be able to get continuation, tap that range at the very top for liquidity, because that's the range that we're moving within, right? And we got a little bit more buy side on that bottom there.
That was the UK's former ambassador to Russia, Tony Brenton,
so might get a nice move this week. It'd be very nice if we can get in on something. Just play it first to that point where you said about 72, straight into that first zone. Be a nice move, and then play it again. Yeah, that would be very nice.
Moment where cracks are emerging. How do you see what happened in Russia?
I mean, I'd say it was a crisis. It was ultimately averted, and effectively there's something of a sticking plaster over that move.
But yeah, guys, just bear in mind, New York opening session. So the next live trading session, which will be about 12 o'clock, 12:30 UK time. It won't be on TradingView. So if you want to join in, just bear in mind, we won't be live on TradingView.
And the other thing that's happened to Putin as part of that process is he's now much more closely personally identified with the conduct of the war. And what Prigozhin did when he launched his operations on Friday is he spouted, frankly, the truth about what's been going on, the fact that the war is in itself built on a lie, that it's being prosecuted badly, that they've hidden the casualty rates. And interestingly, the rates he gave were much closer to Western estimates and Ukraine's estimates, which does suggest that Russia has not been doing well on the battlefield. They certainly seem to have thrown their reserves in at the moment in the south, and they had nothing really left in the tank to stop around 2.5.
Come on then, Bitcoin, give me a little bit something. Thank you for the likes on the stream as well, very much appreciated.
So all of that, I think, doesn't make Putin look particularly strong. They've got to pull together at the moment. It's pull together or hang together, but he is weakened. I think that's without doubt, and I think the Russian military position is weakened. If you put yourself in the shoes of a soldier in the south at the moment, you've got this sort of chaos going on. Prigozhin, who you probably respect because he's been on the front lines, he's identified with you as a soldier, has told you the truth, and nothing changes. That's going to be a very bad feeling for them. So their morale certainly can't be.
Yeah, not crazy. It's not crazy. Monday morning, things are pretty calm. Crypto had a bit of a move over the weekend, which was quite nice. Managed to capitalize on quite a few trades this weekend on crypto. But yeah, setting some structure. Overnight, we got that test of this 15-minute demand zone to see whether we can hold this structure and make a move towards the top. I'm looking at maybe Bitcoin topping out about 33k, 32,500. I mean, we'll go from move to move, but I don't think we're going to that.
And again, I don't think this is played out. I think there's a band-aid over it at the moment.
There's a lot of talks in terms of obviously the bull run starting, but I just don't see that.
But there is the question of what's going to happen to the mercenaries in future. They certainly won't want to go into the army, and there are some signs already of Wagnerites actually being executed by regular army soldiers or Wagner sympathisers. So it's left some real marks, and I don't think those are just going to go away.
Okay, and obviously that is an idea that we can't verify. We don't have reporting on that idea that actually there may be kind of deaths following that. But look, aside from that, I'd be interested to understand your perspective from the UK and how the UK handles this, along with obviously NATO allies. It does seem to be a moment where a lot of countries are waiting, still showing support for Ukraine. I mean, how does the UK handle what is obviously a very fast-moving...
what type of moving averages do I use? So I use a mixture. Okay, so I got the 50 EMA, 100 EMA, and then I've got a 200 simple moving average. They work a lot better for crypto. Crypto tends to hold on to these moving averages a lot nicer than your FX or your commodities. But they still work. You just got to bear in mind there's a little bit more overextensions with kind of those settings on your commodities and FX, and not. I don't use them as much as if I trade crypto. They hold on to those moving averages very, very nicely in the crypto market. Yeah, it's a nice setting to trade Bitcoin and anything in crypto.
But there were signs that could falter if the Ukrainian counter-offensive had failed and stagnated.
Yes, Ali, you're correct. Oil dropping hard.
NATO summit in Vilnius. This is now a real indication that Russia is not doing well. There are fractures, there are splits, and I think it increases.
See whether we can get some structure down here. It's a nice rebound here, nice reaction from buyers. So we'll see how things kind of play out. You got double top here, so understandably we're going to pull back a little bit. I'm more interested in the rebound or potential rebound at the moment. So see how things kind of react.
Accidental, inverted commas, radiological release on the battlefield from Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, something like that. So I think there is now a fear of what will Russia do to lash out, try and look strong again after this huge loss of face, however they paint it.
And Justin, you advise companies and CEOs, given Wagner's international reach, especially in Africa, what are you advising them there after this averted mutiny?
You know, the Wagner influence in Africa, I think, been overlooked recently because of obviously what's been going on in Ukraine, but it is a very sizable contingent. It's a very lucrative operation for Wagner itself. I mean, it's a great way for the Russian state to exercise influence in Africa in this sort of quasi-deniable way. So that's something that they don't likely want to change. They certainly don't want to make those into regular armed troops. But with this sort of distraction, it may lower the effort.
There isn't a great deal. Great deal of movement this morning.
In Ukraine is more proximate for Russia and Russia's survival and Russia's world role than what's going on in Africa. So, if anything, at the moment, it's potentially good news for lessening what's been a fairly benign influence across Africa. So, I think that's making it look broadly more positive. But obviously, in the context of the world in general, I mean, we live in this very complicated system of systems, and there are lots of things toppling, partly as a result of Russia's action in pulling the trigger, going into Ukraine and overthrowing the established global order. And of course, those sorts of things are really cascading down to places like Africa and affecting the situation on the ground a lot. And obviously, there are ramifications here for the China-US relationship. For example, watching this conflict very closely. What's China's role in it? What part will China yet play? What does that mean for the future? And that sort of thing is what's cascading down more on the ground, I think, the Russian tactical actions with Wagner. So that's certainly what we're looking at more closely in the region.
Okay, so the geopolitics and how those pieces move. Justin, thank you so much for your time, for being with us. Really interesting to speak to you. Justin Crump is CEO of Civiline, a corporate intelligence and security company.
Yeah, commodities are just loading.
View on what it means for Russia, for Vladimir Putin. Now, it's 9:22 a.m. here in the City of London. You're listening to Bloomberg Daybreak Europe live. Let us have a look at the markets then, as we do throughout the trading day here on Bloomberg Radio. So thinking about the fallout then from the extraordinary weekend that we've seen in Russia, actually European stocks, they're down, but they're not reacting that fiercely. I would argue we're down.
No, they are not.
For the FTSE 600, the Xetra DAX down 0.4%, the FTSE 100 drops 0.5% this morning. You've seen a greater reaction in natural gas prices, which are down as much as, which are up rather as much as 13% on Monday. Of course, this is the Dutch front month, which is the benchmark in Europe. Stock futures for the US are also lower, down 0.1%. You had a sell-off in China, CSI 300 down 1.4%. Softer economic data out of China this morning was driving that. Meanwhile, in the FX markets, Bloomberg Dollar Spot Index is softer, 0.1%. The euro against the dollar is also weaker, but barely, 1.0889. Again, not much movement for gold, just up about 0.5% this morning. And crude futures also down by 0.4% for WTI crude, $68.93 the barrel. That is a look at your markets this hour. Lizzie.
Now, as we mentioned earlier, Germany's business outlook has deteriorated to the lowest seen this year. And expectations gauged by the Munich-based IFO Institute fell to 83.6 in June from 88.3 the previous month. The outcome was much worse than anticipated by any economist in a Bloomberg survey. And so to talk us through those results is the economist Dr. Clemens Fuest, president of the IFO Institute for Economic Research. Thanks for being with us, Dr. Fuest. Just talk us through what's driving the business outlook.
Good morning. Yes, what's driving the outlook is particular a worsening situation in manufacturing. So in principle, the German manufacturing companies are benefiting from an easing of bottlenecks, but at the same time they are telling us that the orders, the incoming orders, are extremely weak. So they are worried that this may continue and that they may in fact end up with weak demand. They also say that export prospects are not great. They are worried about the state of the global economy, and that's why they are so surprisingly pessimistic at the moment. The weakness is not only in manufacturing, it's really across the board in services. Here in particular, services close to industry like transport and logistics. The construction has been weak for some time, and that continues. Construction has declined mainly as a reaction to rising interest rates, so it's a rather gloomy situation.
Unfortunately, though, there is still more tightening to come from the European Central Bank, so this could also pose more difficulties. What do you expect in terms of the rate path and how that will filter through in the coming months?
The trouble is that inflation is still relatively high and stubborn, in particular core inflation. So inflation is now increasing in the service sector, reflecting higher wage costs and so on. So it's definitely too early for the ECB to stop raising rates. Nevertheless, I would expect the ECB to pause maybe for a month and maybe then another 0.25 percentage points increase. So I think the ECB will slow down, but it will not stop increasing rates. That would be too early.
And how much of the problem can be attributed to labour shortages?
Labour shortages do continue. They are a problem, but they haven't really changed this month. So there must be more going on. One issue is certainly that consumers are focusing on spending with the real incomes they have left on spending on services, something they couldn't do during the pandemic, whereas spending on goods is very weak. A lot of people have made purchases during the pandemic.
Yeah.
Have bought new furniture or a new car.
Coloured bars, yeah. I'm colourblind, so I need to have kind of that strong difference or contrast in the colours. If they're too subtle, just messes up my vision. So I need to have either very like black and white essentially.
We shouldn't forget economic output is currently at the level of 219 in Germany, and other European economies are recovering not very quickly, but more quickly than Germany. Germany is really stuck in this stagnation.
By the way, those that are just joining us, feel free to message us in the chat section. Those that have followed us and liked the stream, thank you very much appreciated. As mentioned already, and if you're watching us from TradingView, just bear in mind that the New York trading session, so the next trading session after this one today, will not be on TradingView. Okay.
Well, in fact, energy subsidies for businesses haven't been paid out very much, mainly because gas prices have declined and also because
yeah, relatively slow morning this morning, so we'll see how things going to play out, but up until about 11 o'clock, and then we can move on to the next trading session. But yeah, we'll see. We've got a little bit of movement, nothing too hectic.
Do you have a thought?
It's been pretty quiet, as you can see.
About what's going on in Russia. I mean, we spent the whole morning, in fact, the whole weekend, obviously glued thinking about the war in Ukraine and what this may mean for the weakening of Vladimir Putin. Is there a read across to businesses, or is it simply too soon to think about that?
It's probably too soon. I think the upside is that, yes, maybe the Putin regime may be coming to an end, and that may put pressure on him to move towards negotiating a peace in Ukraine. At the same time, there is the worry about...
You're right, Daniel. How you doing, mate?
Russia which could be very dangerous. So I think it's very hard to judge how this is going to play out.
This doesn't look
but
too
it's
bad.
Not just a positive development, it's worrying as well.
Okay, Dr. Clemens Boost, President of the EFO Institute for
What was the other one? US dollar, Canadian dollar. We're looking at potentially getting something here on the way back up now.
Especially when it comes to the impact on business and then on the economic outlook.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that is probably quite essential, given as we were hearing just earlier that the war on the ground.
What's going down?
So volatile and kind of
It seems go down.
to think about
There's
the
your
fact that there'll be
change.
only really negative reaction from Vladimir Putin as he's further under pressure.
What asset are you talking about?
It's just coming up to 9:30 here in the City of London, though. Let's give you a check on the markets in just a moment.
This is Bloomberg Daybreak Europe. Europe becomes the first major economy to set out a strategy on economic security.
Rises in interest rates do bring down inflation over time. That will happen here.
We have worked to bring back that stability to the UK economy, which people rely on.
I think rates will certainly go higher from where they are. How much higher they have to go is...
Oh, you're learning. But what do you mean by it's going down? Which asset are you on about?
Good morning, I'm Caroline Hepker.
And I'm
Oh, you're learning English.
Bloomberg Daybreak Europe. We check the markets for you all day long here on Bloomberg Radio. Apart from the impact on the ruble, the turmoil in Russia doesn't seem to have had that much of an impact on global markets because, of course, Russia has been largely cut off. Apart from commodities trade, you've got WTI crude futures down 0.4% at $68.90 a barrel. The Bloomberg Commodity Index is up 0.4%. In terms of equity,
No, you're not alone.
the Stock 600 is down 0.5%. The only sector in the green is chemicals. That's up 0.5%. But at the bottom of the basket is banks, down 1.4%. Elsewhere, the FTSE 100 is down 0.75%. The CAC 40 down 0.7%, and the DAX.
Okay, English and Catalan. I don't speak Catalan. I speak a little bit of Portuguese, but not Catalan. So I might be able to understand you a little bit.
The MSCI Asia Pacific Index is down 0.1%. The Bloomberg Dollar Spot Index down 0.1%, and currently the pound trading up 0.2% against the dollar at $1.23. Caroline.
Those are the markets. These are our top stories. After a weekend that threatened to destabilise Russia, the location of the mercenary leader who ordered a mutiny against Vladimir Putin is still unclear. The Russian president diffused the biggest threat to his grip on power in 2 decades. This with a last-minute deal with the Wagner Group chief Yevgeny Prigozhin. Under the deal, it was agreed that Prigozhin...
Yeah, Portuguese is good. Brazilian dialect is nicer than the actual Portuguese.
Aaron says that the mercenary commander has presented a challenge for the Kremlin.
The fact that basically a mercenary force could get within a few hundred kilometers of Moscow and then decide themselves to turn around, so not even be forcibly turned around by the Russian military itself.
So you're building a trading bot, yeah? I don't really trust that. I don't really trust bots for trading. So, and plus I don't really need one, but if it works, it works, I guess.
And Europe had told Bloomberg that the murky deal to allow Prigozhin and his men to leave without consequences is unlikely to mark the end of the tensions.
Meanwhile, here in the UK, the Prime Minister Rishi Sunak says he fully supports the Bank of England and the action it's taking to fight inflation. Sunak's comments come after some of his own ministers criticised Governor Andrew Bailey, saying he was slow to recognising that inflation wasn't transitory. Speaking to the BBC's Laura Koonsberg, the Prime Minister also reiterated that getting inflation under control is his top priority.
We've got a plan, the plan will work, and we will get through this. That's exactly what people should be hearing from their Prime Minister and their government, particularly from me, given that this particular issue is one that I've talked about for a while. I deliberately made it the first of my 5 priorities, so no one can say this is not something that I'm not aware of, not on top of, and people should have the reassurance that the plans that we've got are the right ones, because they will bring inflation down.
Thank you for the follows, thank you for the likes. It's a pretty slow morning this morning, there's not a great deal of movement.
The potential measure suggests a new twin-pronged assault on the
But
UK's stubborn
let's see what we can get.
with the government prepared to
We're currently in profit here on Eurocards. As you can see, we're seeing whether we can get to that break. We're at break even, so risk free on this one. So this is the one that we're keeping an eye on. We are in long on Bitcoin. Okay, it's just very slow movement at the moment. Just setting up some structure, so hopefully we can get something soon. Pretty nice structure. Came down, tapped for liquidity, tapped again. We got some structure. Okay, so we got that test here from this area, from this 15-minute zone. Move back up. Still looks relatively weak, so maybe we can hold and actually make that move. Stop loss nice and tight, just beneath that structure there. So fingers crossed. We'll see.
Stay with us. We're going to be speaking about the Russia fallout with Emily Ferris, research fellow in the International Security Studies Department at RUSI. Stay with us for that conversation. This is Bloomberg.
And you're not disturbing at all, mate. Ask your questions. It's more than happy. It keeps me busy, to be honest. Trading isn't always exciting. And this morning isn't really exciting, so thank you for the follows, guys. Thank you.
Be next to talk to your doctor about your blood pressure numbers. Get down with your blood pressure. Self-monitoring is power. Visit managerbp.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council, the American Heart Association, and the American Medical Association, in partnership with the Office of Minority Health and Health Resources and Services Administration.
Your business landscape is ever-changing.
There could be a lot more selling to come.
Ours is too.
Just getting some headlines I want to bring to our audience.
We also have the unknown of how much can financial assets take.
We have something else in common.
You know, small caps continuing to feel the pressure.
We seek out the latest business news wherever we are.
A deep drop in Asian equities overnight.
U.S. futures also pointing to the downside.
Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
What is dedication?
The thing that drives me every day as a dad is Dariana, we call him Day Day for short. Every day he's hungry for something, whether it's attention, affection, knowledge. And there's this huge responsibility in making sure that when he's no longer under my wing, that he's a good person. I want him to be able to sit back one day and go, we worked together, we did a good job.
That's dedication. Find out more at fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
This Independence Day, Bloomberg and Morgan Stanley are proud to present the Boston Pops Fireworks Spectacular. Join conductor Keith Lockhart with special appearances by In Vogue, Broadway's Mandy Gonzalez, and Locash. Watch and listen Tuesday, July 4th, starting at 8 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on Bloomberg Television and right here on Bloomberg Radio.
I'm not sure whether BingX connects to TradingView. Let me find out.
Expertise at your side. Take a closer look at ICDR, the International Center for Dispute Resolution. Backed by the longevity and strength of the American Arbitration Association, the ICDR is the world's leading provider of cross-border dispute resolution services, handling more cases than any other institution. Find out why global expertise matters. Visit ICDR.org.
You're never completely ready to adopt a teen.
For late nights writing English papers.
Or your teen's music taste.
For dinners, where they talk more on the phone.
For the first time.
If TradingView allows it, or allows BingX to connect to the platform, it's pretty simple to just get the API. There'll be an API section on the BingX platform, and then you just copy and paste that API into the TradingView section.
Innovation and ask, what's next? You'll hear from leading tech CEOs and investors, alongside influencers and celebrity entrepreneurs. This is a chance to go deeper, to meet people in their world and find out what drives them. Watch The Circuit Thursday nights from Bloomberg Originals. You can catch it at 10 p.m. Eastern on Bloomberg TV and on the Bloomberg app and Bloomberg.com. And download the Circuit companion wherever you get your podcasts.
Yeah, if it allows you to, if TradingView's made a deal with BingX in terms of allowing it to connect via APIs, then yeah, it's pretty simple. It's not hard. It's pretty straightforward.
Center and Smith Incorporated, registered broker-dealer, registered investment advisor. Member SIPC, a wholly owned subsidiary of Bank of America Corp.
Melissa from Michigan. I work an extra part-time job serving lunch at
Thank you for the likes, thank you for the follows as well, guys. Very much appreciated.
Daniel from California.
Feel free to ask us any questions in the chat section. It's a pretty quiet morning. Hopefully we can pick up closer towards 11-ish. But yeah. Slow. Things are loading up. It was a pretty crazy week last week.
San Francisco.
Headlines involving Twitter.
From London to Hong Kong.
It has been a week of huge gyrations.
It was a good week last week.
Bloomberg for market-moving headlines.
All eyes are on what's going on in the tech space.
The dollar really taking control here.
Bloomberg Television, the Bloomberg Business app, and Bloomberg.com. Check your local listings for the cable or satellite provider in your area.
Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day. At Bloomberg.com, on Bloomberg Television, and the Bloomberg Business app. This is a Bloomberg Business.
But yeah, I mean, lots of movement. There was one red day last week. That was on Thursday. Things started to switch up, but crypto's been absolutely on fire, especially towards kind of the end of the week. That was your red day. We brought it back the next day. Some pretty decent moves in the market. But yeah, overall, I mean, it was a pretty strong start to the week last week. Lots of movement, fantastic trades. So yeah, let's see what we can get this week. Hopefully we can pull through again. It is the final week of the month, right? So we do get a little bit of data coming through. PCE prices, EU CPI. Okay, thanks. If I do PineScript code on TradingView and I want to connect it with BingX, it's yeah, it would still follow the same steps to connect your bot with BingX, mate.
The run-up that we saw in yields last week easing off at least a little. 360.
We'll still follow the same steps.
US yields at 4.7%, German yields at 3.04 again on the 2-year, and UK yields at 5.
But don't quote me too much on that because I don't really use bots, to be honest. I just do the trading myself.
Euro-dollar is a little bit softer, but at 1.0890. Our markets reporter Valerie Titel says that is the key metric for fallout from Russia. It's the euro-dollar figure. That is your Bloomberg Radio Business Guide.
Looking okay.
Global news briefing. Greece's voters have re-elected Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis in a landslide. Markets have rallied behind the prospect of another 4-year term for the Prime Minister. The leader made economic reforms a central plank of his re-election pitch. Meanwhile, 9 in 10 mid-sized firms in the UK say they're curbing growth plans because they can't
I'll go pushing up a little bit higher. I want to see how it kind of reacts here.
They also say they're scaling back or making staff redundant. Accountancy firm BDO says the findings mean tough challenges remain despite some resilience. And finally, the average annual service charge for a flat is reckoned to have jumped by 8%, or just over £100 in a year. Estate agent Hamptons estimates that people in England and Wales are currently having to fork out over £1,400. It says charges have risen by more than 51% since 2018. And there are top stories, Caroline.
Okay, lovely. So thank you so much, Lizzie. Now, Vladimir Putin managed to avert an attack on Moscow. He did it at the 11th hour with a deal with his mutinous mercenary commander. But the uprising has pierced an aura of total political control. The exiled Belarusian opposition leader Svetlana Tikhanovskaya told Bloomberg TV just this morning that if Prigozhin, the mercenary commander that is, comes to Belarus with his thugs, as she put it, it will threaten our neighbours too, Poland, Lithuania, Latvia. Joining us now is Emily Ferris, who is a research fellow in the International Security Studies Department at RUSI, so specialising in Russian domestic politics. Emily, thank you so much for being with us. Do you think that this is the beginning of the end of Vladimir Putin? Emily, good morning. Okay,
Lovely to meet you, Daniel. I'm Alex, by the way. But yeah, good luck on building that bot.
Of course, I was hoping that Emily would give us a yes or no. But this is a hugely important moment, and I wanted to mention Tirakhovskaya's
Got very slow price action this morning.
Immensely important, and that is why there's so much tension, so much wait and see and watching what goes on in Moscow, because actually instability, whatever form that takes in Russia, would have a significant impact on perhaps Eastern European countries, and that would be a very big moment.
Look, I think that analysts have really rushed to come to the conclusion that when you look back in history, this will be the moment that was the beginning of the end for Putin, and that's exactly what you were about to ask Emily. It's not a position that is universally agreed upon.
No, definitely not. And frankly, if you look to the last 100 years of history in Russia, when there have been major moments, it has usually always taken quite a long time for those things to unravel. So, yeah, we will be discussing this. Also, I think, though, how this affects the war in Ukraine, although, as we were speaking to our international affairs reporter, Mark Champion, this morning, from Ukraine, talking about Ukraine, there may be, as he put it, glee that is happening on the Ukrainian side, but there isn't an underestimation of
We might be able to get trades at some point
on the ground, and that is quite significant. And then the other factor to throw into this
on your Australian dollar
this hour was talking about
coming back up to that liquidity zone here, tap in. So just need something to build up on the lower time frame. At the moment, we're not really getting anything.
Zaporizhia would be a real warriors.
Came down tapped.
But let's go to Emily Ferris now. She is on the line. Emily Ferris, Research Fellow at the International Security Studies Department at RUSI. Great to have you on.
Might even be able to get in on a pretty short.
Well, I think it's incredibly tempting to see things like that.
Short term long, maybe.
But I think what we need to focus on really is what didn't happen, which is that Putin essentially did manage to quash a potential rebellion. He didn't really give scope for Wagnerites and the army to directly confront each other. There wasn't a kind of mass destruction domestically, even though obviously there was panic, but he didn't sort of deploy the National Guard all over the country. So in a sense, the situation was for now averted. Now, I think the big question is whether that has set in train some kind of discussion among the military elite or the political elite around Putin's position. And that's something that from the outside we probably can't know yet.
Yeah, I wonder whether you were surprised that Putin agreed to guarantee Yevgeny Prigozhin leaving the country, lifting all of the criminal charges for his fighters. Does that aspect of it surprise you? And the negotiations, so we hear that it was via the Belarusian leader. Does that situation surprise you?
Well, I think the negotiations themselves, I think there's always more to this story than meets the eye. So, yes, Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko was sort of the face of the negotiations, but I think he's rather good at sort of sensationalizing a story.
Maybe.
He sort of needs a bit of good PR from Moscow because the relationship between Belarus and Russia can sometimes be a little bit tense, even though on paper they're rather aligned. But actually there were quite a lot of other people in the mix that did broker that relationship and the negotiations with Prigozhin. There were regional governors, there was the Russian ambassador to Belarus, Boris Gryzlov, who also played a really instrumental role. And then, of course, there was Putin's own presidential administration who did try to have negotiations with Prigozhin before they kind of broke down, after which Putin gave his address to the nation.
Alright, I'm going to close out your CAD.
He didn't really name Prigozhin directly, and he talked sort of obliquely about, the betrayal of Wagner and how this was a stab in the back. That sort of derailed, I think, some of the negotiations that they had been having. And then I think it did fall to Lukashenko as a second choice really to be the face of the negotiations. But I guess I'd be cautious in suggesting that he had such an instrumental role in sort of pushing it over the line.
Emily, I wonder if you could settle a debate Caroline and I have been having about the significance of Wagner's international reach, especially in Africa, and whether the West is really prepared for that if a mutiny like this were to come off.
I'm going to take a long here on your Australian dollar.
Aside from some Wagner was predominantly deployed abroad as a sort of instrument of Russian foreign policy, and especially in places like Africa, the way that they tended to function was, as guards for mining activities, but also they played a really important political role often through Russian embassies, to try to influence election processes or sort of make sure that regional elites, especially in Africa, were sort of co-opted, I suppose, into sort of the Russian view of the world or things that were favourable towards Russia. And I think there was, when the war started, I think there was a bit of a view that because Wagner was so bogged down in Ukraine, it would necessitate a bit of a pullback of their forces from places in Africa. And actually, I don't think that's really been the case. I think that's probably because they're quite a small and flexible grouping in Africa, and we're talking a few hundred people, thousand people.
Emily, I'm sorry we have to wrap it up there. Emily
Yeah.
Flores from Ruthie.
So in terms of structure, just so that you guys are clear, been getting some nice tests. Okay, so let me just pull this over here. It's been here as well.
Trade globally from a single integrated master account with no ticket charges, no custody fees, no minimum.
So you've been getting these areas, tapping in for that liquidity, right? So there's your demands all the way up, back down, test, all the way up, back down. Didn't get the test here, but we got a retest of this area, and then same thing happening here. So hopefully we can get that move.
Stocks hit a fresh record. Bears have basically been rendered obsolete.
The rate hike dance is playing out in the belly of the curve.
Are you worried about a wage price spiral?
So yeah, even this would have been some nice trades. From here, tested that area, back up. Nice say here or just beneath. Been a very nice trade that.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
But I'm feeling it because there's a lot more to report. Like when there are parched or windy conditions out there, you gotta be extra careful with things like burning yard waste. After all, wildfires can start anywhere, even in your neck of the woods. Go to SmokeyBear.com to learn more about wildfire prevention.
It's a nice test.
U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council.
Meet Sam. Sam is 30 years old. Sam may not
Nice risk reward. We're playing it to, we'll see whether we can get up and above really, but see whether we can get around this area here. It's a little bit of structure that we can play to.
The Fall of Sam Bankman-Fried. Follow Spellcaster, The Fall of Sam Bankman-Fried on Amazon Music or wherever you get your podcasts.
The New Deal created American infrastructure that unleashed new opportunity. Today, we're doing it again with massive investment in modernizing our infrastructure to build for tomorrow. At Build America Mutual, we protect your municipal bond investments that help make it happen, building a vibrant future for our communities and your portfolio. Invest in the future of America with BAM insured bonds.
Wherever your business takes you, Bloomberg Radio is here with you.
Breaking economic news crossing the Bloomberg.
Powered by 2,700 journalists and analysts.
So let's get to some of the day's gainers.
In more than 120 countries around the world.
We are seeing a flatter picture for European stocks this morning.
We're the only 24/7 global business radio platform.
This market regime is going to come with more volatility.
Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg Radio, on demand and in your podcast feed.
On the latest edition of the Bloomberg Daybreak U.S. Edition podcast, a conversation with OpenAI CEO Sam Altman on an artificial intelligence future.
There's many ways it could go wrong, but we work with powerful technology that can be used in dangerous ways very frequently in the world. And I think we've developed over the decades good safety system practices in many categories. It's not perfect, and this won't be perfect either. Things will go wrong. But I think we'll be able to mitigate some of the worst scenarios you could imagine. Bioterror is like a common example. Cybersecurity is another. Like many more we could talk about. But the main thing that I feel is important about this technology is that we are on an exponential curve and a relatively steep one. not that important in our evolutionary history. And so I think we have to, given that we all have that weakness, I think we have to like really push ourselves to say, okay, GPT-4, you know, not a risk like you're talking about there, but how surely the GPT-9 won't be. And if it might be, even if there's a small percentage chance of it being really bad, like that deserves great care.
And if there is that small percentage chance, why keep doing this at all? Like, why not stop?
I think that the upsides here are tremendous. The, you know, opportunity for everyone on Earth to have a better quality education than basically anyone can get today. That seems like really important. Might be a bad thing to stop. Medical care and what's I think going to happen there, and making that available like truly globally. That's going to be transformative.
Hear the full conversation on the latest Bloomberg Daybreak U.S. Edition podcast. Subscribe on Apple, Spotify, and anywhere else you get your podcasts. Plus, listen anytime on the Bloomberg Business app and Bloomberg.com.
Live in London on DAB Digital Radio. The Bloomberg
Go, go, go.
Bloomberg 99.1 in Washington. Bloomberg 106.1 Boston. Bloomberg 960 San Francisco. The Bloomberg Business app and Bloomberg.com.
Okay, we're looking good.
Welcome back. Good morning. I'm Caroline Hepker.
And I'm Lizzie Burden. Let's go over to the US now. Nathan Hager is getting ready for his day. Daybreak US, I should say, is coming up soon. Nathan, we know you're going to be monitoring the developments after an extraordinary weekend in Russia.
Yeah, I can understand why you mix up the name of the show because our focus will be on Europe. Of course, good morning, Lizzie. We're going to start the day off with global team coverage with an eye on what comes next following the biggest challenge to Vladimir Putin's grip on power in Russia in nearly a quarter of a century. The images of those Wagner Group convoys rolling toward Moscow, threatening a mutiny, caught the world's attention over the weekend. But just as soon as it started, it came to an end, and the world is waiting to see what comes next. Now that Putin and the head of the Wagner Group, Yevgeny Prigozhin, made that apparent deal to drop charges of treason and send Prigozhin into exile in Belarus. Since then, we have neither heard nor seen from Putin or Prigozhin, but we have heard from the Biden administration. Secretary of State Antony Blinken was on most of the Sunday talk shows here in the U.S. saying cracks may be forming in Putin's leadership and Ukraine may be able to take advantage. We're going to bring you more reaction to the unfolding situation in Russia throughout the morning. We will get the latest live from Bloomberg's executive editor for international government, Rosalind Matheson, and we will check in as well with Bloomberg Government's Zach Cohen for the reaction in Washington as this challenge to Putin's leadership continues to develop this morning.
Yeah, absolutely. Is Putin damaged goods or more dangerous than ever? I mean, the market reaction, though, seems to be muted.
Yeah, other than the weakness for the ruble that we've seen overnight, Caroline, it has been somewhat quiet. We're going to be watching the oil market, certainly, for any reaction there. We did get a note out this morning from Lori Calvasina at RBC
Really nice.
Market saying that this new geopolitical uncertainty is coming at a pretty tough time for markets in terms of seasonality and might give the stock market a new narrative to latch on to following the hawkishness from the Fed and the tech rally we've seen. Just so happens we've got Lori Calvasina of RBC Capital Markets with us live this morning, so we'll get more on her thoughts about where the market could be headed into an uncertain second half. We're also looking forward to bringing you an extended conversation with Elon Musk, the Tesla, SpaceX, Twitter CEO. We talked with him on a Twitter Spaces interview over the weekend, managed to cover a wide range of topics, including the hundreds of changes Elon Musk says have been made to the SpaceX Starship since it failed to make orbit back in April. So that conversation with Elon Musk and much more, including, of course, the latest on the situation in Russia, we'll have it for you in mere moments here on Bloomberg Daybreak, U.S. edition. Caroline and Lizzie.
Lovely stuff. Thank you so much, Nathan. Daybreak US, as you say, coming up in the next hour here on Bloomberg Radio. Most read story on the Bloomberg terminal is about the London skyline, HSBC leaving 8 Canada Square, and actually coming to move to a building much closer to where we are, close to St Paul's. But it's all about the idea of downsizing post-pandemic, you know, the more hybrid working. The lender is leaving the skyscraper that they've had in Docklands for quite a few years.
Yeah, they're going to be in BT's old head office on Newgate Street.
And this apparently from 2027, so that's when it's going to happen. But yeah, it's all about downsizing and more flexible office space. So that's the most read story on the Bloomberg terminal. And then, of course, second to that is the Russia latest story that we are updating for you minute by minute what happens in Russia.
Yeah, but speaking of banks, one of the other top stories on the terminal is about Goldman Sachs cutting about 125.
Moving my stop loss to break even here on Euro cards, Euro Australian dollar, sorry.
To watch as well on the terminal this morning.
Yeah, absolutely. Lots of great interviews this morning, just trying to unpack and dissect what it means for Vladimir Putin. Of course, we had the former ambassador, UK ambassador to Russia, speaking to us live this morning. Justin Trump also from Sibylline Corporate Intelligence, and there'll be much more on this story throughout the morning on Bloomberg Radio.
For our London audience, Bloomberg Surveillance Early Editions up next, and for listeners in the US and elsewhere, Bloomberg Daybreak starts right now.
Broadcasting 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com and the Bloomberg Business app. This is Bloomberg Radio.
From the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers Studios, this is Bloomberg Daybreak for Monday, June 26th. Coming up today.
Vladimir Putin faces the biggest challenge to his leadership in Russia in nearly a quarter century.
The world watches for what's next after Putin's apparent deal with the Wagner Group. Global team coverage just ahead.
One of the biggest bears on Wall Street sees more pain ahead.
And we speak with Elon Musk about his new plans for SpaceX.
Some very important rulings are expected this week from the U.S. Supreme Court, plus New York City puts on its annual Pride Parade. I'm Michael Barr. More ahead.
I'm John Stashower in sports. The Yankees rallied to beat Texas. The Mets blew a late lead, lost in Philadelphia.
That's all straight ahead on Bloomberg Daybreak. On Bloomberg 1130 New York, Bloomberg 99.1 Washington, D.C., Bloomberg 106.1 Boston, Bloomberg 960 San Francisco, Sirius XM 119, and around the world on BloombergRadio.com and via the Bloomberg Business app.
Good morning, I'm Nathan Hager.
And I'm Karen Moscow. And U.S. stock index futures are lower this morning. We check the markets all day long here on Bloomberg. S&P futures down 0.2%, about 10 points. Dow futures down 0.2%, or 56 points. And NASDAQ futures down 0.3%, or 42 points. DAX in Germany is down 0.5%, and the 10-year Treasury up 12/30 seconds, yield 3.68%. Yield on the 2-year, 4.70%. Nathan.
Karen, we'll get back to the markets in a minute, but we begin with the latest from Russia and the biggest challenge to Vladimir Putin's grip on power in nearly a quarter century. Moscow has lifted anti-terror measures that went in place over the weekend after the head of
Thank you for the likes on the stream.
Halted his advance on the Russian capital. The Kremlin says it made a deal to end Prigozhin's...
Yeah, we're in long here on Euro Australian dollar as well as long on Bitcoin. So let's see what we can get in the next hour. And then we'll start looking ahead to the New York opening session. Now, those that are just joining us, please do bear in mind that that live trading session will not be on TradingView. You will still be able to access it, just not on TradingView. So do bear that in mind.
Well, Nathan, there's not been much public reaction out of the Kremlin since the deal was brokered. Bloomberg's Greg Sullivan begins our global team coverage from Budapest.
After the deal was announced and confirmed by the Kremlin, we have seen a mostly silent Kremlin since then. We have not seen President Vladimir Putin publicly since he gave his Saturday TV address, in which he called the Wagner Group's actions treasonous. Even Prigozhin himself, Yevgeny Prigozhin, the head of the mercenary group, the Wagner Group, he's often boisterous in public, and he has been largely out of public view since then as well, leaving a calm that leaves a certain nervousness, unsettledness from the events over the weekend, and room for focusing on the questions of what does it mean, what are the implications of what transpired over the weekend, and that seems to be where the focus is now.
And Bloomberg's Greg Sullivan reports one Kremlin figure has made an appearance since the weekend mutiny. Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu was seen inspecting troops in Ukraine today. Shoigu has been the focus of Yevgeny Prigozhin's harshest criticism.
And Karen, we have been hearing reaction from the White House over this weekend's events. Amy Morris continues our team coverage from the Bloomberg 99.1 newsroom in
All right, it's closed out at break even. All right. We're not going to be looking for anything. Okay, so we'll just let things set up. Let me just have a little double check on oil and gold. See whether we can get in on something, maybe.
That's now much more out in the open than it's been.
Secretary of State Blinken says the uprising is a distraction that can help Ukraine.
No.
Meanwhile, he says the U.S. is in contact with Russian officials about the safety of U.S. personnel and citizens.
Yeah, still needs to wait. Yeah, we're gonna be patient and let things kind of develop a little bit ahead of the next training session, and then we'll go again. But yeah, it just seems like things are just loading up and set in structure. There isn't anything really to majorly capitalize on at the moment. So yeah, everyone that joined, thank you very much for joining. Hopefully we'll see you in the next training session for the New York Open. Again, as mentioned, you will not see us on TradingView, okay? So you will still be able to join it, just not on TradingView, okay? But yeah, thank you very much for joining, everyone, and I shall see you in a couple of hours. About 12:30 UK time, we'll be back live. Just setting up for that pre-market analysis, get some more trades in the pipeline ahead of that New York opening session. Okay, so yeah, if I don't see you then, enjoy the rest of your day, and hopefully we'll see you tomorrow. Thank you. Cheers.